Boy, I didn't. I sure killed it, didn't I? Married with Children is a sitcom that most people think is from the 90s, but it's actually from the 80s.
Married with Children is about marriage, not so much about the love part.
Married with Children is fascinating.
Ooh, I detected something there. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast, a podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to. You guessed it, we are doing Married with Children to kick off 80s sitcom month. All month long, we're doing 80s sitcoms. So if you'd like us to review an 80s sitcom, that means it had to start like in the 80s, right? I guess that might be the rule.
Yeah.
And just give us the suggestion in the comments below, but please suggest also where we can find it, because a lot of these are difficult to find. And if you can't find it, where to stream it online, we're not going to be able to either. With us today, of course, is our special guest co-host, Dr. Muhammad Noor.
Hello, always a pleasure to be on Watch the First, and very happy I don't have to get scared anymore.
Well, some of these 80s sitcoms are pretty scary or pretty horrible.
Oh.
And also joining us right now, actress, producer, writer, Laila Shacker.
Hello.
She's incredible, you guys. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Let's get into Married with Children, episode 1, entitled, My Pet Peeve is that all shows love to call their first episode pilot. I don't even have to change it in my notes from one episode to the next. Like I changed the title of I changed the title of the show, but then the pilot, don't even have to bother. All right. So everybody make your suggestions in the comments below, as you know, for 80s sitcoms. And let's get into it with our very first and my favorite game / segment entitled.
I think we're stuck in a predicament about what that might be.
So Muhammad and I have known each other for, a few years now, I'd say. Laila and I have known each other, feels like forever, but probably only about 7 years. So we can usually, and Laila and Muhammad go way back to 7 minutes ago.
Ancestry is connected, maybe. Yay, Egyptian love.
We like to predict if the other person liked this show or not. While I'm thinking, everybody that's just watching and listening at home, be sure to give us a like. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Give us a 5-star rating on whatever listening device or listening platform you've got. And my answer is, Muhammad, you are a pretty positive fellow. And I think you enjoyed this for the nostalgia of it. I think some jokes made you do the Picard face palm. And I think some jokes made you laugh out loud. And I think you're going to give it a decent score, like around a 7. Laila, I think you're going to say, boy, I thought this was going to be better than this. And you're going to give it maybe a 4 to 5 because you're trying to be nice, but that you really didn't quite like it as much as you expected. Those are my guesses. What do you think, Muhammad?
So for Ryan, I actually am going to be a little more critical than I usually am on this one. But in terms of my predictions for you, I think you're actually not going to like it so much. I think you're going to give it a couple of points for, like you said, for the nostalgia. But I think you're going to think it fell a little flat. And especially, well, I can elaborate why later. Because I don't want to give away too much on myself. Laila, those 7 minutes, we didn't discuss that much. I think probably I'm just thinking because from things you said, I got a sense of how old you are. So I'm guessing you didn't watch this in first run. So I'm guessing you're going to think that, like, what is this? So I'm thinking you're not going to be that positive. I think you'll be maybe in the 3 to 4 range.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. All right, Ryan, I don't really know where to go with this with you. there's parts of the humor I feel like, okay, I feel like you could get behind, but then as a whole, I think you're gonna think it came a little bit under, felt a little bit flat. I'm gonna go with that. That's what I'm gonna go with overall. And then Mohammed, I'm just gonna really commit to something. I'm gonna say you loved it. That's what we're gonna go with. Off of this 8-9 minutes now that I've known you, I'm just gonna commit to this. Yeah.
It's like pin the tail on the donkey. You're like, I don't know, this.
I really
So while people are putting their guesses there in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself.
Okay.
Everybody,
I wasn't sure. I was like, I guess I can take over.
yeah, please do. Everybody in the live chat, we've made our predictions. Make your predictions now. Do you think I liked this show? Do you think Muhammad liked this show? Do you think Laila liked this show? And how much or how little, or did we not like it? Give us your predictions. If you need a little bit of time, because you can't type super fast, don't even worry about it. Dr. Noor here is going to buy you a little bit of time by telling us what this show is even about.
I've got you covered. All right. So Ed Bundy is a rather depressed shoe salesman with 2 kids who exchanges frequent jabs with his wife, Peggy. In this episode, Peggy makes Ed skip out on a Bulls game outing to meet 2 happy newlywed neighbors. However, Ed and Peggy's different approach to their relationship rubs off on the newlyweds and disrupts their harmony.
Special note, it's Al Bundy, played by Ed O'Neill.
Oh, sorry, my bad, Ed. Yeah, Al, you're right.
He does seem like an Ed Bundy, though.
Yeah, you're right.
Or Ted Bundy. Maybe that's not good.
That's probably what I was thinking in my head. I shouldn't have. Al Bundy, you're right. Good call.
All right, so everybody finish up your predictions, and we're going to move into the next segment that Muhammad here likes to call
Expect Getchin. You tell us what you expect and then what you actually getchin.
So we compare and contrast what we expected versus what we actually got. Muhammad is the bravest one out of myself and him, so he's going to start us off. What did you expect before you watched this first episode of Married with Children, entitled Checks Notes Pilot?
First officer. So I had seen this a little bit in first run. Probably not the very first episode, but I'd seen a little bit of it in first run. But it definitely wasn't a show that I watched closely or anything like that. So I knew the general theme. Well, actually, I was going to say too much about what I got. Yeah, so I knew that they were cranky. I knew there was definitely an edgy comedy for the time frame. Since that time, like periodically in like Facebook, when it has those little reels, they'll sometimes have like a little clip from one of the episodes from the show. So every now and then one of those has come across my screen and I've seen a little piece of something. But so I had a pretty idea what it's about. But in terms of the pilot itself, no, I had no idea where it started. And I didn't remember things like, I almost said Ed again, like Al's job. I didn't remember what that was, for example. So.
Oh, really?
Or apparently his first name.
That was a big part of the show, I think. Laila, before you watched this first episode, what did you expect, if anything?
So this is interesting watching the pilot because I've actually watched later episodes like out of order. Just in my own time. But as far as the pilot specifically went, like same thing. I knew kind of like the theme and the kind of edgy comedy, but it was different than what the pilot itself was a bit different than what I had originally expected when I first watched it. Like I wasn't expecting how just they really just dive into the insults and the hate just right away.
Little hint of what we got there.
Yeah, we're getting a teaser into the Getchums. So I'll tell you what I expected. I had seen the show a bunch of times when I was a kid. I remember it was the It show along with like Martin. and In Living Color. It's like right around that time. And I know that it was a show kind of like Seinfeld or Cheers, in which it got popular later on. Like, I don't think it hit the ground running. I don't think the first 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 seasons, it was buzzworthy. But then suddenly everybody kind of picked it up and it became like the show that kids talked about at school. Did you watch Married with Children on Monday night or whatever it was? I think it was Monday night, maybe. And it was during that clowning culture or capping or dissing or making fun or your mama's so fat or your mama's so dumb. Like, it was that moment. And people right now are saying, well, that's still good. Everybody, no, but there was a specific moment, like maybe right around 89 to 91, where it was like, that was the thing, was capping or dogging or dissing or whatever it was, these little one-liner jokes. So I remember that. So what I expected was a lot of that. But I hadn't watched, the early stuff. So I expected it to not be quite as good or as funny as what I thought I remembered it to be as a child. But that's what we expected. Muhammad, what did you actually get when you watched this work of art?
Well, my first big surprise was just how young everybody was.
Yeah.
I saw Bud, like, oh my God, he's like a little kid. I mean, I've seen things with Bud, and he's like in high school and making out with people and stuff like that. Like, what is this little kid? Like, Christina Applegate's still like a teen and stuff. That all totally threw me off there. That I guess this went back, like you were saying, Ryan, much earlier than I remembered. In terms of this episode, it really didn't grab me like at all. I was very. I don't think I even chuckled at all the whole time. I was just kind of watching. There were a couple points near the end there where like when they actually disrupted the other newlywed couple, and some of the looks that Al was giving to, what was the guy's name, Steve. Some of those were, it's a little funny, but it like really didn't grab me at all. I was surprised at how, maybe, I don't know if this is just something about being on Hulu or something like that, but I was surprised just how it felt very low budget. Like it didn't seem very well produced. And it seemed very like, the cameraing, the lighting, it was all just very simple. And even the deliveries were okay, but it felt just okay at best to me. But yeah, the biggest thing that struck me was just the youth. And I guess part of it's Al, or I guess in this case it is actually Ed. Ed, I'm used to from Modern Family. And it's like, whoa, he's so much younger than he is in Modern Family, like radically so. But yeah, it makes sense. But anyway, that's my off the cuff. I have more specifics, but I want to give Laila and you, Ryan, a chance to talk to.
Radical. What do you got for us, Laila? What'd you actually get?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Muhammad a little bit. Like I said, I have been like kind of dabbling in some of the later episodes. So yeah, as far as like what I was expecting, I mean, like, I thought more of the kids were going to be in it. So I was kind of surprised that like they had such a small part in the pilot. It was really just about Peggy and Al. And so I was I was expecting kind of more of a whole like family thing that they would bring in there. But I mean, it's only like 20 something minutes long, so I guess there's only so much they could do. But I have to kind of agree with Muhammad on his take on the pilot as well. It was like there was definitely humor, and I think for the time, like what you were saying, Ryan, I think for the time, like that was really in. It was a little. The pilot itself was a little bit like, okay. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you guys why you're wrong about this show.
Okay.
Another time, because you're right about this particular one. What I got was in the first minute or two, I was like, oh man. Like it was just boring. Like, and I'm going to be a little harder on it than it deserves, I think. But, it didn't, it wasn't really written well. Like there was no real arc. There was no real conflict. Like people might say, well, no, they were arguing. That's not really conflict. It's not conflict of motivation or whatever, but it was just a series of one-line insults. Like the first 5 to 7 minutes was just a series of one-line insults. And I'm like, there's no story, but you know, I don't watch a sitcom, I guess, for the story, but apparently I do a little bit because I was just like, they're just sitting here trading insults and nothing's happening. But anyway, so what I got was, because I know Muhammad's going to jump in on this as well, but what I got was, you know, an okay show. It's about what I expected. And yeah, Bud was a baby. Bud was a freaking baby. So that told me when I started watching this, you know, like clearly a few years after this. But anyway, what have you got for us, Muhammad? You were going to jump in.
I was going to add to what you said too. It was interesting how many little threads started and just got left. Like I was totally expecting something more about this Bulls game and about his friends and stuff like that. And that was kind of laid out there and it got quashed. And then that was just it. And then Bud apparently went, I guess. But then that was it. Like I was expecting Bud to come back and be like, it was great. And Al would be like, oh, I'm so mad. I didn't get to see it. This was one of the few times they beat the Lakers or something like that. But it was just, no, that just got
It seemed
dropped.
like this pilot episode, they were, and probably the plan for the show was that they focused more on the neighbors. Like it felt like it was going to be more about, you know, Peg and Al and the neighbors and their, you know, their dynamic and their relationship. And the kids were going to be in and out little things. But when we know about the show, like, you know, a few years later, the kids were much more a part of the show. And the neighbors or the one or the neighbor, you know, Marcy, or then there was Jefferson. They were much less. They would just kind of show up every once in a while, right?
Yeah, and actually the scene in the shoe store too is just, I mean, it was again the same thing. It was just like a bunch of it. I mean, there was that slight plot build, but then again, it was that plot that just kind of got fairly abruptly just dropped.
Yeah, like the dude, I think that was probably a guy that they were going to have as a recurring character. I don't remember the guy, so clearly he didn't last. I don't know if he lasted just the first episode or the first season, but they let that go real quick. But yeah, that was a plot line that nothing happened with it, right?
Yeah. I did the one thing I did like a little bit, since we're trashing, it's pretty hard. The one thing I liked about it a little bit, I did like that there was a light, happy ending there, kind of that Al and Peg at least were kind of bonded at the very end. I mean, it's partly almost bonded just in how they didn't particularly like the approach or agree with the approach of the other couple, I guess. And then but it was just a little bit of a, like, it's not just all horrible people disrupting things. I appreciated that a little bit. I probably would give it an even lower score if it didn't have that.
If it didn't have
I don't know what you think, Laila.
Yeah, I mean, no, I definitely, what I would thought was interesting when I was watching it was like, because I mean, I'm sure some people are familiar with like the Save the Cat, as far as like in, you know, writing and whatever, you at some point in the beginning, the main characters do something to kind of get the audience on board. Like as bad as they are, they do something that you're like, okay, as bad as they are, like we can still get behind them because they, you know, they saved the cat. And I'm watching the pilot and I'm like, no one saves the cat. No one's saving the cat here. But I feel like, I don't know. And again, this show is definitely before my time. So I was thinking maybe because they do take like the whole stereotype of being married with children so far that they're just banking on like dads are going to get behind, you know, Al, and moms are going to get behind Peggy. And that's what we're going to go with. But as the pilot went, I was just like, oh, interesting. Okay. So that clearly didn't apply to the show, but it went on for 10 years. So clearly,
wow.
I mean,
11 seasons, yeah.
Didn't it go on for
11 seasons, yeah.
11 seasons,
Amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But
wow. Yeah, but that's a good point. I wonder if they kind of modeled it that way to where they're like, okay, we're gonna give dudes a chance to stick it to their wives by watching this show and like picturing their wife being run down by Al and like, hey, I'm just a sad guy that works all day and puts shoes on ugly women all day, and I come home and then my wife beats my balls, and you know, not in a good way either, and then I just
doesn't get me juice.
Doesn't get the juice. Oh my god,
All
they
I
talk
wanted
so
was
much about the juice. Yeah, yeah. No, so I mean, as I said, that was fascinating because I was like, wow, they're getting away without having us really like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to love the jabs to like the pilot especially, but honestly, most of the whole show. That's part of why I didn't really watch it that regularly. I was kind of like, they're kind of horrible. I don't love that.
I think it was just that there was maybe like a new style of comedy, which was just, or sitcoms, where it was just like
Yeah.
one line insults. If we
Yeah.
just do one liner insults, and like everybody is just trading jabs at each other, and then we have a little bit of a story, but people
Yeah.
are really watching it to see who can. I don't know how they could do that for 11 years. Aren't you going to run out of jokes and insults?
I mean, wasn't that Roseanne's thing too?
Maybe.
Maybe. I didn't watch that show much either.
Like
But
in the later episodes, when the kids are in there more, it does bring a little bit of a dynamic because those characters they're different. They're So I don't know.
I remember Bud always trying to seduce people, but obviously he wouldn't be doing it at this age. That would be pretty horribly disgusting at this age.
Yeah, I wonder where we started seeing it, because our memories of this show are, but I knew that it was going to be, I knew that it kind of got good later, kind of like with Seinfeld again. Like if you watch like the first season of Seinfeld, for example, or we did watch the first episode of Seinfeld, and it was, very different. They had a waitress that was supposed to be like the fourth main character. And then they did away with her and added Elaine afterwards. And we just know Elaine forever. Same thing with when we did watch the first of Golden Girls. Everybody go check that out as well. There was a fifth main character who was like a human manservant guy or something. I don't know. He was like a servant guy or assistant guy, or that maybe he lived with them. I don't know. But that was weird. And then I think he was gone after that first episode. So
what did you think of the deliveries?
Well, I definitely felt what you felt, Mohammed, which was when you said the low production value. There were moments, about 2 or 3 scenes, that I felt like I was watching, a community college play. Where it's just like 2 people sitting on a couch reciting lines, but nothing's happening. And it's, are they really putting much behind the delivery? I guess, but how much acting can you really put into just tossing an insult? So I did feel that very much, where a couple times I did feel like I was just watching, two 19-year-olds in their first theater class. And that's not an insult to the actors. I'm just saying that's just what the setup felt like to me. What about you, Laila?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the cast goes in general, I think they're all amazing and comedic actors. But as far as like this pilot went, as far as the delivery of the lines, I think it's the same thing. It's like, how much can you do with like back-to-back insults? But I was honestly, the parts where I did laugh the most was that when they weren't talking, it was their facial expressions and their reactions. So I thought that was pretty spot on. Like some of like Ed O'Neill's like facial expressions, his looks were, I thought,
the scrunched face,
great. But as far as like just like the delivery, it was very like bump to me, like very like yeah.
Actually, that was one of my favorite parts, was towards the end when Steve's talking to Marcy and he says, well, if I wanted you to know, and he looks over at Al, and Al's just like,
I literally wrote
that was the one
this
time.
This is my favorite part. This is my favorite part.
That was mine too. Mine too. It was definitely the best part right there.
You're funniest when you don't talk. No, but I remember Al Bundy being, at least from the, little boys' perspective, was the star of the show. For little boys, it wasn't Bud, and it wasn't Steve. It
wasn't Kelly.
No, I mean, I think that was a different kind of star later on. But Ed O'Neill became very funny when he would talk about his high school football touchdown thing, and he would go off into his thing. And by the way, I just remember this. This was the first and possibly only time I've ever heard a studio audience actually saying words, not just laugh or ah or gasp, but saying actual words. And I remember it kind of took me out of it. I'm like,
What
you've
did they
got the
say? I don't
most.
remember that.
It wasn't in this episode. I'm saying,
Oh, okay.
like when I was a kid, it was like, I'm like, you guys have an unruly audience. I just remember Al like sitting down or saying something or doing, and he sits there and everybody's like, yeah. And you actually hear people going, all right, Al. And I'm like, what the hell? Get a hold of your audience. They're just taking over. They're saying words. But maybe that was on purpose. Boy, I didn't. I sure killed it, didn't I?
I mean, you're right.
Yeah. You guys are like, anyway, sick of this show.
Look at
I mean, like what you're saying makes sense though, because if you're really gonna get behind this show, like you're gonna, then it might. You would be. I think it would be people that would speak during the taping.
Look at the notes of things I thought were funny. I like that the boyfriend's name was Cobra with the sore on the mouth.
It was from a cigarette burn.
Oh, that's right. He said cigar. That's right. Yeah.
I didn't laugh. I thought I was going to go this entire episode without laughing. I was like, boy, this is. But then at the very end,
that one thing,
there were some laughs for me. And it was all at the end. Like it got better at the end for me. Like when the neighbors show up and they go, oh, you have a nice house. And he goes, yeah. So do you. Or something. I'm like, that's funny because he just clearly doesn't give a shit. Also, when Peg said, do you have PMS? And Marcy says no. And she says, get it. Thought that was funny. And then when Al gives the look of, if I want you to know, whatever. And
the coffee thing. I like the coffee thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when Steve and Marcy were leaving, Marcy's delivery when she said, "You'll watch nothing," I thought that was funny, and that about covers all of the funny moments for me that actually I found funny. Do you have any funny moments, Laila? You had a few, right?
Yeah, no, I mean the one that stood out to me the most was the same, just Ed O'Neill's look when the guy starts talking to his wife about if I wanted you to know what I was thinking, I'd be talking. Like his look, like, oh my God, is he gonna say it? I thought that was great. Yeah, that was my top. That was my top moment. And there was some. I mean, I think, banter between Al and Peggy. Like they're throwing insults back, and she mentioned something about like shaving your back. Which I thought was funny. But then his response to it, they were trying to one up it, and I was like, and then you lost me. Yeah, I think it was mostly the expressions, like the facial expressions, and like how they deliver, how they deliver the dialogue that I thought was funny. But I agree. I think a lot of it happened towards the end. I think it's once they had other people to kind of I think kind of balanced out, because the two of them, it's just insult. But when we have other people kind of in there, it brings a different dynamic. And once that was in there, I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah.
There's one I wrote down too that it was incredibly mean, but I did think it was a little bit funny. It was when the kid said, "I want a balloon," and Al was like, "You've already got one."
Right. Actually, the only moment until the end that made me laugh, and probably the only time I actually made an audible, like an actual sound, like a ha, was when at the opening of when it shows him to be at the shoe store, and then the kid just knocks all the shoes down. I don't know why that made me laugh.
He was going crazy.
But I'm like, that kid just did such a good job of just knocking the shoes off, and I'm like, oh God, I felt him immediately. I'm like, oh God, this guy's got a tough job.
So as actors, I'm very curious, like for this sort of setup, it's very much like, it's one side. It's like you're not getting a bunch of different camera angles. Do you think this is the kind of thing they largely do in like one or two takes? Or do you think it's the kind of thing that they had to do actually several?
Sitcoms, I think, and I think this is probably 3-cam sitcom, they're basically going to go through everything. And then if they mess something up, then I guess they go back and take it from some spot. But I think that they are performing in front of a live studio audience, so they rehearse for that week, and then the day before, whatever, and then they perform for the audience. Right, Laila?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, because this was definitely before my time, but
Laila is 14, everybody.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I think that sounds about right. Yeah, I think they just went all the way through. Yeah.
Unless they mess something up or forget lines, or whatever they do.
If something doesn't land, I don't know. I know for Friends they would do that. Like if a line didn't work, they would literally like rewrite it and do it again.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know about that was like for all shows.
And finally, this is going to be my one major disagreement with you, Muhammad. And it's at the very, very end when out of nowhere, suddenly, Peg and Al are like, well, hey, you want to go out on a date? Sure, we sure have fun. You want to go upstairs and hump? Ah, sure. Can I grab your ass? Too late. I already did it. Like it was just, it made no sense to me. I was like, how they've been fighting this whole time. And then suddenly out of nowhere, it wasn't even, I guess it was motivated by their both achieving something together.
Yeah.
So, and that's also but the part right before that is what I think saved the episode for me, which was that they finally gave us something to where we go, this is what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about, Al taking Steve under his wing and Peg taking Marcy under her wing. I don't know how long that lasted. That's not what the show is about when we know about it. But finally, at the end, we had the moment where we go, so that's what the show is going to be about.
Oh, it's a fair point, Ryan. It was definitely non sequitur, but it was still, I didn't like the theme part. So I was like, it's a non sequitur, but at least doing something I like better. Fair point.
More enjoyable. And Laila, I do want to point out that this is the first time anybody has used the term non sequitur on this show. So kudos to Muhammad for that. And you were here to witness it. We're very pleased. Muhammad always brings up the vocabulary of our show. All right. Well, speaking of bringing up the vocabulary of our show, everybody, Laila, you know where we're going with this. It's time to talk about you for a moment. How are you? How have you been? What's new? Have you been working on anything over the past summer or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on a pilot for feels like forever now, and I've just been doing more rewrites on it. I think it's definitely at a point now where I'm really excited about it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but that's been taking up a lot of my time. And then just now that COVID's kind of opened things back up again, I'm back to doing my improv, doing a lot of that. Yeah. So
you want to tell us anything about the pilot, or is it still top secret for now?
Oh no, I can talk about the pilot. Yeah. We're still working on a title, but it's essentially it's a little bit loosely based off of kind of my experiences since moving to LA. It's much more exaggerated and stuff, but it is a sitcom about a struggling actress and kind of her band of friends, and also just kind of how it's been the dynamic of being, because I'm half Egyptian and the character in this is also kind of the navigating kind of casting and all that, and having like people have kind of preconceived notions and ideas of what it means to be like Middle Eastern. So it's kind of just the adventures and mishaps of pursuing your dream while trying to survive.
Do you actually get cast this thing specifically as somebody from the Middle East, or are they just like, you're kind of brown, you could be a Native American or whatever?
Specifically, I mean, I personally, it's a lot of Middle East, and then like randomly I get called in for like a lot of Latinas as well. But my kind of like in the pilot, it comes up of like, it's not just being like, okay, you're someone in LA who happens to be half Egyptian. It's like, okay, but like, tell us about, is it a hardship? Like, tell us. And I'm like, well, the hardship is that I can't just be an actor. I have to be like, I'll talk about it in the pilot, and I've had interviews like with agents and stuff, and they're like, so do you speak, how many other languages do you speak? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was born and raised in San Francisco, I speak English. So it's just kind of, brings up stuff like that, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's awesome. You mentioned improv too. What are some of the improv things you've been working on?
Yeah, so I study improv at the Groundlings. So I'm back in there because with COVID and everything kind of just stopped. So I'm back in there, kind of just training, and got some shows coming up that are going to be at the Groundlings Theater. So yeah, it's been fun.
When's your next show?
I've got one actually coming up, not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. So if anyone wants to come to the Groundlings Student Stage, I'll be performing there. I think the show's at 7:30.
Nice. What's the name of the show?
Huh?
What's the name of the show?
Oh, it's just students at the Groundlings just performing.
Oh,
stuff
okay.
Like that. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you about one thing you have on IMDb. It's this credit called Fighting Olympus that's coming soon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was a fun project to work on. It's an interesting concept. It takes place modern day, but there's like a city below like the regular city that kind of takes on the characteristics of like ancient Greek myths. And people are like basically getting kind of kidnapped from like this real world into this like other city where, there's a Hades and a Zeus. My character that I played was Persephone. So I was someone that
was my guess. I'm so happy I guessed right now.
So the idea is that somebody was kind of kidnapped and taken to this other kind of world, and these cops are kind of have to leave this area to go and explore this other world and bring them back, and kind of there's like a Medusa, and but it's a modern take on all of these myths and stuff like that. This is a lot of fun. Yeah.
So what do you enjoy most? Ryan, when he first introduced you, mentioned that you act, you produce, you always say, what do you enjoy the most? What gives you the most satisfaction?
My first love is acting and improv for sure. Sketch writing, also for sure. But yeah, acting and improv is definitely what I'm most passionate about.
None of your historic projects, and so not necessarily just recently. What's the one that you like your go-to when you want to tell somebody about, like, you should see me in blah?
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. Let's see, off the top of my head, they actually did this web series a couple years ago called Get It Together. And it's a comedic web series, and I have some, if I may say so myself, I have some pretty funny moments in there, I think kind of encompass some of the character work that I enjoy doing. Yeah.
Where can we find Get It Together?
That's on YouTube. You can literally Get It Together web series on YouTube. We filmed a whole first season, so that's all up on there now. Yeah.
That sounds very exciting.
Wow. Very impressive. So go check out Get It Together on YouTube. Watch the entire first season, and then when you're done with that, feel free to watch it again. So let's move forward. Great stuff, Laila. Muhammad already knows.
Do the karate chop for them. The bottom line.
That's what it is.
Not the terrible twos, just the bottom line.
Asterisk, terrible twos. Everybody, it is time for the final two questions of the show, and they go a little something like this. Question number 1. Dr. Muhammad Noor, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Married with Children entitled Pilot?
I would give this one a 4. Flat out 4 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, there was some setup. The acting was pretty good, but there wasn't a lot there, and I just found myself, but it's Ryan, for the first half, I just found myself kind of bored. Just a lot of grumpy people hating on each other. No, it just wasn't appealing. But by the end, that I pushed. I mean, if it had just been that, I may have been more like at the 2. But then the second half was a little better. Okay, there's some interesting things happening here. It's getting a little more funny. Okay, so I'll double it.
Sounds like they weren't the only grumpy person hating on something, Muhammad. What about you, Laila?
NC curmudgeon.
What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So the pilot, if I'm just going off of the pilot,
Absolutely.
not anything else I've seen of the show, just the pilot. I would say,
she's preparing us for a low score.
I would say probably a 4 as well. Yeah, I would say probably for the pilot. Yeah.
Yay, we're tied.
Yeah.
I appreciate the verification.
All right. Well, I'll tell you that it's a 5.5 from me, which is kind of strange because I'm not entirely sure why I want to give it a 5.5, but that's just the number that kept popping up in my head. So I finally was like, I'm going to stop fighting it. I'm just going to put a 5.5, stop dissecting it, because it felt like I was like, well, are these jokes really that bad, or am I just a little snooty? I'm like, it's maybe a little of both. Like I'm trying to judge it as fairly as possible. And like, in 1987, when this thing aired, people probably thought this was revolutionary and brilliant and great. If this show came on today and I had no preconceived notions about it and I just watched it for the first time, I would have been like, ugh. I would not have watched it all the way through, I don't think. But TV and writing has improved over time. So when we watch stuff from the 80s, we kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. So anyway, 5.5 from me. And you're lucky I'm giving you a 5.5 married with children, married ...
It's
with
true.
children.
I think you're being generous, but that's good.
That's just what it felt like. However, the real question is number 2. This is the one people tune in for. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Married ... with children. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, Dr. Noor, would you watch the second episode of your own volition, theoretically?
So when you said ... I was like, I would say ellipsis. I would absolutely not. No way.
What?
I'm good. I had no desire whatsoever to see what the next one was like.
My predictions were spot on here.
I don't know. I think Lila's gonna say yes. Laila, of your own volition, would you watch the second episode?
I think I would watch the second episode of the 6th season.
Interesting.
But if I'm in a bubble and I hadn't seen the later seasons, I'd only watch this pilot, probably not. But I think it does find its voice and it does find itself a little bit more the later it goes on.
Yeah.
Sounds like a no.
Yeah.
But it was a much much softer no. Yeah, it was a very new to where it's like, well, in a bubble. Well, we're not in a bubble. So does that mean that you would does that mean that today in 2022?
I've seen like episodes from like season 7, 8, and so on, and I've laughed. I was like, I'm laughing and going like, these jokes, I don't know how they aged. So like, I don't know if they aged particularly well, but I do find the dynamic very funny. I do, but just the pilot, yeah, that's a different story. So it's hard. It's hard.
A soft no, but a no nonetheless. Now oh boy, no, that's a pretty easy no from me. Kind of like what Laila's saying, in a vacuum, like just if I'm just never saw anything, didn't know anything, and I watched this first episode, I don't think I would have even gotten to where the show got better. I think after 5 to 7 minutes, I'd be like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna head out. But not a vacuum. Even just like knowing that it gets good and knowing or better, even then it's still a no, but it's a softer no because we're not in a vacuum, and I do know that at some point I at least should enjoy Al Bundy more, but even still, I'm fine leaving it in the past.
I thought one other thing I liked in the very, very beginning, in the intro sequence with Al sitting there passing out the money. I liked the part where the dog came and got money too. I thought that was a little funny.
Yeah, that was cute. Did you love the dog as well, Laila?
I loved it so much.
Did they use 2 dogs? Because if the show lasted 11 seasons, I mean,
I hadn't thought about that.
maybe they got. I almost vaguely remember maybe them getting a new dog, like a smaller dog, like a smaller mangy.
I don't think. Do we see the dog in the episode at all? I remember in the intro sequence. I don't think we saw the dog.
He ate pancakes.
He feeds the dog. Like
Oh, that's right, the pancake. I forgot about the pancake thing. Yeah.
It was very funny.
You say so.
Kind of a funny moment.
Yeah, because Al wanted the kids' leftovers so bad.
And for a moment, I was like, "Oh, they're gonna be like nice for a second," and then I was like, "Oh, nope,
Nope."
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for us, everybody at home or in your car. Watch out! You better not be watching in the car, just listening. If you'd like us to review an 80s sitcom, a sitcom that started in the 80s, make those suggestions in the comments below, but please tell us where we can find it, because Mohammed and I had a bunch of ideas.
We did.
And we looked them all up and we're like, nope, can't find them anywhere.
Watch the first Silver Spoons. I don't know. Did it start in the 80s? I can't remember.
Oh, that's got to be an 80s show. Yeah.
Or Family Ties.
What was the kid's name? Ricky Schroeder, right?
That's it, Ricky Schroeder. Yep.
Wow, Lila's like, you guys.
Aaron Gray was
totally
his mom.
different.
I remember that
language. Oh, was it Aaron Gray? Really?
Or the stepmom? I think I don't understand. I think she was. I think it was a stepmom.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
we like her.
I just remember because I used to watch Buck Rogers before that. I'm like, oh, it's Aaron Gray.
She was in Buck Rogers too.
Oh yeah. She was like Colonel Wilma Deering in Buck Rogers.
And the dog's name is Buck. Full circle.
Buck.
We're gonna save you, Laila. She's like, I don't know what they're talking about. I thought the
more to say about
over.
other shows.
I'll watch you guys do a review on the first episode, and I'll learn all about it. It'll be great.
Yeah. WTF Buck Rogers, WTF Silver Spoons, I guess.
Buck Rogers, I think, is 70s. I think it started in the 70s.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. And it's not a sitcom.
Yeah.
But you can still suggest it, and we'll add it to the list, everybody, and we might do it when we do sci-fi again soon. Anyway, that's about it for us. So please make sure you are giving us good ratings and liking this video. Exactly. Do the things for us. It's very nice. And what I'm trying to say is that this podcast was an insult a minute.
This podcast was proof that Ryan does sometimes have the highest score.
This podcast had a lot of soft nose.
It's true. It's all cartilage.
Oh, good biology knowledge.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you. But right now you're saying it's actually not all cartilage. The cartilage starts, it's their bone here, man, whatever. We get it.
All good.
It's the thought that counts. All right. Everybody at home, thank you so much for joining in the fun. And remember what Michael Kenyon Rosenberg always likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor, and don't forget to watch the first of things.
Oh, wait, who's your favorite character? Freeze frame like your favorite character.
Shitty smile.